Hello, I'm working out of Chapter 2, Module 1, where we're dealing with categorical data. I'd like a method of counting the different types of categories. So I'm going to introduce today the Countif function, which is a function that Excel offers in its general categories of functions. First thing I want to do is I want to look at this table that's on the screen. This is what I would refer to as raw data. Either you gather data or the data has been given to you and you have been asked to work with the data to say something intelligent with it. Here we are given the data set. There are 50 observations on a single variable. This single column contains all the observations on the brand of soda or pop purchased by some set of customers. This data is said to be in its raw form. It is a good practice to always save the raw form of the data and work with the copy. This keeps you from accidentally destroying your raw data set. So the first thing I would like to do is with this data set is create a copy. So how do you create a copy of an Excel worksheet? To create a copy of the raw data, right click on the data tab. Observe where I've placed the mouse. When you right-click that tab, one of the options you receive is to move or copy. Choose to create a copy. Then determine where you want the copy to be placed. Notice I only have one sheet here, so it asks me, do I want it to be before that sheet, or do I want it just moved to the end? I'll choose to move it to the end. It also asks me where I want this thing placed. In other words, do I want to copy this spreadsheet into some other file? If the answer is yes, I can choose to copy this spreadsheet into any of the files that are open on my machine. I just want to copy it here in this file. So here I go, pushing OK. I'm going to rename the copy. So what I'm going to do is just double click here till it's highlighted, and then I am going to rename, just type in categorical to remind me that I'm working with categorical data. Then I just push return and it moves my cursor back up into the body of the spreadsheet. Alright, here we go now with the analysis steps. Let me kind of walk you through what we want to do. I want to take all of these statements, these data points, I think we called them an event in Chapter 1, and I want to know how many unique different names there are. Once I have the unique names that are in this list, then I want to count how many times each unique name occurs. So here I go. First step, I need to know the number of unique brands that were purchased. You could do this the hard way, which by the hard way I mean you could just look up and down this column until you find each unique name. Now remember, I only have 50 objects in this column, so this might be easy now, but you know, at some point in your life you might actually be working with spreadsheets that have a couple of million objects within this column, and that becomes unimaginable. I mean, how in the world would you do that much counting? So let me introduce you to an easy way. And here I go with the easy way. So here's what I'm going to do. First thing I want to do is I want to highlight the set of data. So I put the cursor up here in cell A2. I'm going to push Control Shift and a down arrow. That will highlight all of my data. Next thing I want to do is go to the Data tab up here. And one of the choices up here is to remove duplicates. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this option. And I get this box telling me or asking me some questions. This discussion box asks where the duplicates are. Notice that the brand purchase variable has a check box next to it, meaning that it's assuming that the brand purchased is a header. And so it's not going to include it as unique, it's just going to include it as a header. Once you press OK, your data in this column A will be reduced to only the unique names. Notice I wiped out 45 observations and ended up with just 5. Okay, now we can move to the actual analysis. I want to create a header here in column B, and I'm going to create the header frequency. I'd really like to spell it right, so maybe I'll push F7 and see if I can get it spelled right. What I need to do now is I need to go back to my raw data, and I need to count the number of times the word Coca-Cola appears in this column of data. So I could do this an easy way or a hard way. At this point, I would say that the hard way would be to just go back and say, let me count up the number of times the word Coca-Cola appears in this list. Well, in my mind, that's the hard way. For one thing, I don't know that I trust that I would catch every cell. So let me try something different. What I want to introduce is something called the Countif function. And I'm going to let the Countif function do my counting for me. Now this formula, let me start to type it, equals Countif. Notice that the Countif function has two parts. It asks me for a range. In other words, it wants me to answer the question, where's the data you want me to count? And then it asks me for a criteria. The criteria says, well, what has to be true in order for me to count an object. So let's go through and let's enter the range. This is going to be in my original spreadsheet, the data spreadsheet. I will just highlight the set of all data in that spreadsheet, and then I'm going to push F4. F4 is going to give me an absolute reference, and that's exactly what I need, is an absolute reference, so that I can copy this function here shortly. I'm going to go back to my categorical, and what exactly am I asking it to look for? I am asking it to look for the word Coca-Cola. So notice I left that a relative reference, because I'm going to copy this down, and in B3 I'm going to go to the exact same data set, the absolute reference, but I'm going to change what I'm looking for to Diet Coke. So let me push return. This claims, or this number claims, that Coca-Cola appears 19 times in my list of data, which is exactly what I wanted. I wanted that count. Now if I entered that function correctly, I should just be able to copy all the way down. Now I have the number of times each word appears in my original list of data. So that's counting data with the Countif function. I will give you another video attached here shortly that will also tell you how to use a pivot table. A pivot table is even faster, but the reason I didn't give it first is because you with a pivot table kind of lose track of exactly what you're trying to do, because it does it all for you and hands it over on a silver platter. So I will get to that shortly. Thank you for your time.